Robert, thank you so much for welcoming us today. It's an absolute pleasure to meet you. So for the audience, could you please briefly introduce yourself?
Oh, okay. Hi, my name is Robert Rubinstein. I started a company 25 years ago to change the financial system so it works for everyone or all stakeholders, not just investors. And that's what we've been doing for the last 25 years, basically educating and advising asset owners and managers why is sustainable investment relevant to them. It's nice to see that everyone is talking about it. Not everyone is doing it though.
No, absolutely, and that was 25 years ago, so obviously a lot has evolved since then. The concept of impact investing wasn't really known.
No.
ESG as well.
No.
So how did you get the vision? Who did you work with? Like, where did you get your support? And just how did you believe in yourself and the idea that you had?
Well, I didn't get very much support.
Okay.
It's been a lonely struggle for the last 25 years and still is. I had started, my background was in making magazines. I started the first bicycle magazine in the Netherlands, and that was a good financial and spiritual success. And the other magazines were only spiritual success and financial disasters. But the last magazine was the first European management magazine on sustainability. And when the investors pulled the plug while we were on holiday, I decided I still want to create an economy based on well-being. So I figured I needed the business community on board. And they would only embrace this, 25 years ago, they were not too crazy about it. It was so bad, I remember when I had that management magazine on sustainability, people were afraid to touch it if I gave a talk over there. They thought something might happen to them. So I realized to have the business community support the idea, they would only do it if they felt excruciating pain to continue in the direction they were going. Because most people everywhere are comfortable. They might not like their boss, but they have a decent salary. If you keep your mouth shut, you'll succeed. So getting them to actually feel pain, you had to focus, what are the pain buttons that will get their attention? So that still is finance, personal reputation. I tried addressing the personnel issue by teaching MBA students at the Rotterdam School of Management about sustainable finance, but at that time, this was like 15 years ago, 18, most of the students would talk about sustainability and then they would all go to Anderson, McKinsey, Ernst & Young, Boston Consulting Group, and hate it. And I told them, if you want to change business, just refuse to work for the company when they come to recruit you. But they were all afraid. And reputation is very, very hard to influence, even if you have money. And then I looked at who had all the cash in 1997, 98. The Japanese government pension fund, AXA, Allianz, the Nordic sovereign oil fund. It wasn't so big then. And the top 100 asset owners / managers had about 20-25% of all the cash, direct or indirect. So I figured, this was not a PhD study. I figured I only have to convince those 100 guys. They were only men, 100 CIOs. And that's why I started TBLI, to educate those 100. I think over the years we didn't have the 100, but we had the equivalent in assets in the room. And I think that we definitely influenced, at least, I tried to add it up, about $50 trillion in assets over those 25 years doing 40 events. And that was the idea. That's still the same. It hasn't changed much, except that now it's much more about how, less about why, but more about how.
But it took time to educate and
they're still not educated.
Exactly, that's what I was about to say. So this is a really important part to me, education. So first, back then, how do you manage to educate the people that you mentioned, and was it successful? Like, how did you manage to do it? What was the process?
It's very easy. I mean, there is no group more predictable than the financial sector. It's just a bunch of alpha males and females who run up the hill and off the cliff. they have very limited information. People think they're brilliant, they have lots. They have a very limited in scope. If it's not in their scope, they don't look at it.
Okay.
So you have to focus on three things. You have to focus on self-interest, what's in it for me, because they're very transactional, opportunity, where can I invest, and the most important, you have to show them the money flows. If you push the moral imperative to someone who has a benchmark and is afraid they're not going to hit their benchmark, but they'll hit the moral imperative, that person is still going to be fired. And you're not going to get their interest. So there were no incentive programs to embrace it. So saying, well, why should they? So you can get very angry at UBS or Credit Suisse, or Bank Stuart, or any of them. They're just following instructions. If their clients say, here's my money, don't lose it, make it grow, but I want you to have a measurable impact on society, they'll do that. But if you don't tell them that, they won't. So you have to really show them. At that time, most people didn't believe that you could make money and have a societal improvement or environmental improvement. And I remember everybody would say to me, Robert, this is interesting. Do you have research that shows there's no underperformance at worst or an outperformance at best? And I stupidly used to send all the research paper because there was loads and loads of research. And then finally one day I had an aha moment and I realized this was not about proof. This was about belief. Because I looked at how much research was done on subprime collateralized debt obligation. I'm sure some obscure university in Estonia did a paper on it. Who read it? Nobody. How much money went into it? Everything. And that's when I stopped sharing research and focused on getting them to believe. And you get them to believe by showing the self-interest, the opportunity, and money flows. Not the moral imperative, because that only works if someone is at a certain level of awareness. If they're not there, what are you talking about? You're really shouting loudly in Mandarin to someone who speaks German. And you can shout louder, but they still won't understand. And that's a mistake that many people made, is they try to shout loud in a different language. You have to speak their language. Their language is money. That's the financial sector is very, very pragmatic, very simple. They're not, they never surprise. And as long as they keep getting fees and they're incentivized for certain behavior and products that reflect their true cost, and students, are afraid of student loans and they just go work for banks that they hate or asset management, it's not going to change. When clients say, I want to move money in a different direction, they'll do that.
So you've observed a shift in the past few years, I guess.
Yeah.
So now people talk about impact investing. More and more people are aware of what it is. But what is your own definition of impact investing? Because it's becoming a mainstream term, and I think we can get evasive. I think many have different definitions, so I would be interested in knowing yours.
Well, the way it is now, it's like everybody wants to say, I have a membership card to a fitness club, but I never go. I never get on the machines. But I have this membership card. That's unfortunately what most is. Because if you just look at, don't even do a deep PhD research, just look at claims of the Social Investment Forum, the trade associations of all these ESG. They're claiming 40 trillion, Bloomberg going to say 53 trillion is going to go in ESG. If that figure is true, then we shouldn't have such a long list of problems like climate change, or water, or food security, or pollution, or cancer. You cannot have if 40 trillion is going into solving that, either it's not going in, it's not enough, or people's definitions is screwed up. And it's pretty much the fitness club story. I want to show I have a membership card. I just don't want to do the work. And unfortunately, it's politically correct to say, I do ESG, and then when you pull up the kimono, there isn't really anything there. And that's unfortunate. And for us, our definition was very difficult for people to achieve. Our definition was, while you're making money, are you maintaining or better improving the social environmental balance? 99% of all companies are worsening the social environmental balance. You know, if you don't know what the social balance is, after you came back from holiday, that first day, that feeling that you have rested, relaxed, and then the you know, whether you're a student or that, the treadmill starts again. That definition, very few companies. So everyone wants to show that they're part of the club. And I remember there was a family office in Singapore, and they asked me, could you please come visit us? We'd like to learn more about ESG and impact. And I said, okay. So I opened the door and I was shocked. There was this big plaque on the wall. It said, coal trading, oil trading, and gas trading. But that's where this family made their money in the past. And they want to get away from that. And if we don't understand, how is it possible that the most toxic companies score so well on the sustainability index? If we look at BP and Shell, very high marks. Mm-hmm. If we look at PepsiCo, diabetes, very high sustainability mark. We look at Unilever, semi-toxic cosmetics and processed food. Mm-hmm. That's what they make. Mm-hmm. Also very, because the methodology used is not what the company does. How the company reports. That's not the same. So you could be reporting wonderfully, and they do, but what you're producing or creating or servicing is making things worse.
So on that point, what would be ideal to measure the true level of sustainability of companies, the true level of impact? Like what framework would you like to use ideally?
I would say that it's all a work in progress. I don't think anyone has a simple, straight answer, because if you look, like there's a thing called the Global Reporting Initiative, GRI, mm-hmm. and it's based in Amsterdam. And they have many, many key performance indicators. So they have all these key performance indicators, and one of the most important ones is diversity. So you're a listed Finnish company in forestry. Only white Finns work at your company because you're in the north of Finland. There are no black people. There's no, Asian people. Mm-hmm. So you'd score badly. So should that, in your situation, should I be looking at diversity as much as someone whose company is in New York or in other? So I think there's not one size fits all. I've seen some fantastic models, like we had Richard Barrett, who has, I think, the best model for measuring the social performance of a company. And he only asks 3 questions, but he does it with every single employee. So if there are 300,000 employees, it doesn't matter. He asks those 3 questions, and he creates a kind of Maslow pyramid and decides that this department is in defense or they're in self-actualization. I don't think there's a simple, straight answer, mm-hmm. but we can do, I mean, you know what it's like. If you probably have friends who work at a company you don't like. Everybody does. And maybe you're working at a company you don't like. And you know what it's like. What a horrible place to work. Everybody thinks it's so fantastic at NGOs. They treat their employees like dirt. Much worse than, you'd better work at ExxonMobil than Amnesty International or Greenpeace or World Wildlife Fund. They treat their staff very badly. But it's an NGO. We're working for the better good. So I think there's progress being made, but you can pretty much, see, everyone talks about all this money going to impact investing. And if you look at all of the unicorns created in the last 40 years, and I published a list of all the unicorns, most of them are not really addressing any societal, really great problem. Airbnb has destroyed the cities. It sounded really good that I can rent out my room, mm-hmm. but it's made the cities unbelievably impossible to live there. It's just destroyed the entire framework. But at the time, they were a great unicorn. And most of the people are unicorn hunters. They talk about sustainability, but their first reaction, but that's a charity. You can't make money on that. So people still think you can. It's a money-losing proposition.
Absolutely.
But they believe that myth is money losing, bad deals, bad management. But no one questions the myths of the fund managers who claim, well, we'll always get 30% for our hedge fund. No, they don't. Or we're going to get over 30% for a private equity fund. Ask your father how many private equity funds are hitting 30% as promised, and how many fund managers always hit their benchmark. Those are the big lies, but no one questions them. And they question the story about you can't make money there. And that's mainly because people know what they already know, and they all live in very, very small ghettos. And their ghetto is Bloomberg or Reuters or whatever the ghetto is, or Zurich, or Geneva. And they don't leave that. So it's the greatest challenge that I found is not convincing. The greatest challenge is access. People with a lot of money, with a lot of zeros, are very isolated. Bezos and Musk or don't have signs on their homes, hi, I have billions, come visit me. They don't. So they have these moats and guards and, people blocking the door. And that's really the challenge. It's not the convincing. Convincing, if you ask anybody, do you want a financial return with a social environmental added value? If you ask anybody, sure. Why would I be against? No one's going to say, oh, no, I want all my money to make life miserable for everybody, and I'm working at that 24/7.
But would you agree that there's a tendency for what we call impact investments to be profitable after a longer time if you compare to traditional... No, so I mean, this is maybe something that can be an argument for people who are reluctant because they think, I don't want to wait too much time before I get returns, even if impact is important. So what are your thoughts on that? Like, do you think we should completely change the way we do investments? Like, what would be your ideal, for example, in terms of weight of impact and profit? Like,
I think it really depends on the individual. If you're a family that's not an uber billionaire and you're putting aside money for your children's education, which is most of the world, you have you have a 20-year time frame that you want the money, to be there, or a pension, where others are hunters, and we need farmers. Some are pirates and cannibals, but most are hunters, and most are unicorn hunters, pretending to be sustainability. Impact doesn't necessarily mean you have to wait a long time. What would speed up the acceptance if products really reflected their true cost? I mean, you buy a bicycle in your country, I think it's 8% or 9%, and here it's 21% for a bicycle, VAT. You buy an airline ticket, there's no VAT on it. Zero. There's no sales tax anywhere in the world on airline tickets. And there's no tax on kerosene, because that's an agreement that everybody made. So airlines don't reflect the true cost. If that came in, most of them are all going to be losing money, but we accept this subsidy. So as long as products are not going to reflect the true cost, you're always going to have these distortions. If there's an actual carbon tax for all activity, and everything that is carbon intensive will be more expensive, companies will adapt because it hits everybody, and they'll start making products and services that are less. There's no guarantee. There's also no guarantee that if you embrace sustainability, you will be successful. Look at digital. It was probably before you were born, but Digital Equipment was a big computer company. They won lots of awards for great sustainability. Swiss Air went bankrupt, and they were also seen as the great champions. So it doesn't mean that you will be successful doing that. If you make something that people don't want, that's not going to help you. But you can be sure that if you don't have an efficient use of resources, energy, personnel, waste, etc., you will not be successful, because this is about using less energy, using less resources, using less water, producing less waste, spending less money on hiring the best and the brightest, attracting the best and the brightest because they want to work there. All of that transforms into more profitability. And so short and long term, you'll be better. And I think the mistake made with the whole climate change risk is it was about sacrifice. We've got to give up and do this. No one said, no, this is about making our economy incredibly resilient. Let's make our economy so resilient that we can get hit with gas prices going up, 300%. No problem. We don't use much gas anymore. We use, other ways of heating our homes. We make the homes much more efficient. We use very little power. So all of that makes it much more resilient. You don't get hit with all this nonsense. And that is a much wiser strategy. And people have to decide for themselves, why do they want to do impact investing? Is it, because they want to give back, or they don't want to profit from environmental and social destruction? That's also fine. Or you want to feel good about your investments, or your buddy made money on a certain crypto and NFT and said, I have to do that. Are you just following the herd? Is this a passion? Because most of the people that I speak to say, yeah, we're totally committed to regenerative agriculture. Okay, so I show them the best example of regenerative agriculture with the best team. Oh, no, we're looking at these 10-minute bicycle delivery services for food like gorillas. Yeah, that's really fixing the economy. That is really your great statement for sustainability. You can't walk to the corner and buy a container of milk because you're a millennial and you think you have to have everything the minute you want it, and it should be brought to you in 10 minutes. So that's just stupidity. And if people want stupidity, that's fine. That's for them. I just don't want people constantly pretending to be committed. You don't want to do it, that's fine. It's your money.
So to contribute to change, not only contribute, but you're, let's say, pioneer in that field. What have you been doing in the past few years? If we go back to your work at TBLI, what are the different type of activities that you're running to achieve your purpose?
Well, we because of COVID, we got hit with the financial crisis and lost 95% of our revenue. Because if you were not fired at a financial institution and you're not given budget, the last thing you want to do is, hey, I think we should sponsor a TBLI conference. So we lost most of our sponsor money, but we still saw the need for education was greater. So we adapted and found a way to do the event, not at a 5-star hotel, but at universities or at NASDAQ. When COVID hit, we couldn't do face-to-face at all, and that was our business. So we had to change to a full virtual system on 2 fronts. One, create a weekly masterclass with the various thought leaders on sustainability to inspire others and have a virtual mixture, and we did that every week. And then on the money capital mobilization, we built a friend of mine who built the app for the Apple Store. He said to me, you should build a dating engine because everybody basically wants you to introduce them to investors. So we had 40,000 readers for our weekly, the publication. Wow. And about half were investment allocators. So they direct or indirect influence on investment. So we built a dating engine, and instead of, men meeting women or women and men, based according to physical characteristics, we replace those with investment characteristics. I want direct deals. I want themes of energy, transportation, healthcare, education. I only work with fund managers, whatever. So we put that in, and have been onboarding thousands and we get hired by organizations or fund managers that are looking to raise money. Because the process of raising money, if you're not a tier 1 fund, which is like BlackRock or Blackstone, they don't raise money. They send the fax and they don't have to really work to raise money because they're tier 1. Most of the world investment opportunity are not tier 1. Very, very few are. So those people have to spend 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years trying to raise money. And everybody reads, oh, look, Mark Zuckerberg got all of this IPO for that. Yeah, and they don't read about all the people that don't get their money. So we've just made it a more efficient use of connecting family offices with other family who want to meet, connecting with opportunities. And that's how we've shifted to a virtual system. I don't want to do our face-to-face events anymore. It's too much hassle.
Why is that?
It's a lot of work and no one wants to support it. Everybody wants to come to the party, but nobody wants to bring the chairs.
Okay.
So nobody wants to support it. Everybody expects to come for free. And I said, well, how do I pay for the catering if everyone's coming for free and no one wants to sponsor? So the only way you can make these events work is you have to lie. You have to basically say what a lot of family office events, your father will probably confirm this, they promise, I'm going to put you in front of 100 family offices with 200 million in assets. And you go there and they're not there. They're not there. So you have to lie to hustle and sell the sponsorship or do a kind of boiler room. That's not us. We never had a sales team. Never did in 25 years. We just basically went about it and we caught the flow. So it's nearly impossible to, unless you lie or unless you run a virtual event, not allowing any networking or not allowing any questions being asked like a North Korean trial. So you can listen, but only if you're a sponsor. You can actually see who's in the room. You can't connect. It's very much about controlling the narrative. And we want to have honest discussion and saying, sorry, but what you're doing is absolutely bullshit. And it's not helping anything. So you're just fooling yourself. So we have open, straight, honest discussions, and people appreciate that. But I'm not looking to, I don't want to be McDonald's.
And what are the players, the main players that are part of this network that you're, all these people that you're connecting together?
It's different. Some are high net worth investors who are serious about sustainability. Some are pension funds that are moving from curious to serious. Some are endowments. Some are just multifamily offices. It's a wide variety, but I would say the ones doing the most are talking the least. And the ones doing the least are talking the most. So those that talk a lot are probably not doing very much. And you see it, the BlackRocks, the Blackstones, lots of big press releases, but where they're still an active fossil fuel investor. So for me, they're a heroin dealer. That's the modern day heroin dealer. You are profiting from the environmental, social destruction of everyone. And that makes you a heroin dealer. You don't like to hear it, don't do it then. Yeah, it's easy to make money. You work at a bank. She worked at a strategy consultant. It was all about bringing in hours. At a bank, it's about bringing AUMs, closing that deal, getting that commission. That's what it's about. And that is the incentive system. So if you can easily close a deal on a coal-fired power plant in the Philippines, why would you not do that? And that's the reality. It's not a values, for me it's a values issue, but for the bank, they want to make money. That's what they're there for. And they're squeezed more and more margins. So if they can make a few million on putting together a deal, all right, we'll keep it quiet so nobody knows that we're actually doing this. But the pressure is increasing on these heroin dealers, and they don't like to be called heroin dealers, but they are, that there are other ways. The largest employer in the world is small-scale agriculture. Number one. What gets all the attention, all the money? The bullshit unicorn tech companies. We have an app that's going to pick your nose, 24/7. You don't have to do anything. The app will do it for you. Valuation $2 billion before the IPO. Just these nonsensical unicorn hunter garbage that is not really improving people's lives. You're making your money for that, which is cool, but don't pretend that you're actually committed to improving things. There's small-scale agriculture, regenerative agriculture, increases soil concentration 2%, we can offset all of the climate challenge we have. That's an incredible opportunity. Low carbon construction, public transport infrastructure. There's lots and lots of the public transport infrastructure has to raise 2,300 billion every year, 2,400 billion every year. And it's steady cash flow, no volatility, it offers yield, it's mainly in debt. How many people that you meet talk about, let's really do, the next unicorn will be funding the public transport system of Geneva? No, there's only one public transport system that makes money, Hong Kong. That's the only one.
That's the only one?
Yeah,
Really?
that's the only one. That's because they own the real estate.
Okay.
So there are lots and lots of opportunities, lots and lots of opportunities. So as I said, low carbon infrastructure, green retrofits, new carbon neutral buildings, regenerative agriculture, education, healthcare, and that will retool society and create jobs. It doesn't all have to be a 10-minute home delivery on a bicycle because it's about the data that we're going to collect. It's not about they don't care about the delivery of the milk. It's about the data so they know exactly who you are and what you're doing. I think the society needs something a little bit better than that. And I think that when people realize, how it's all developed. I was really thrilled that for the first time Facebook lost viewers, and members or whatever you want to call them, because maybe people are starting to wake up. Hey, get off your fucking phones. Interact with people, and think about what you're doing. It's not that big a jump in change. We're not asking you to cut out every single paper that you have and divide it in 45 different bins. There's a lot of things you do. Don't work for companies that don't align with your values. Refuse. Because when a recruiter comes to get you, and you come from a ranked school or from a good family, and you tell them, I'm sorry, I'm not excited about the red BMW you're offering me. What does your company stand for? That only has to happen a few times, and they tell that to the board. That's when students or employees have power by refusing to work there. You can't change the company getting a job there and thinking, I'm going to change it from within. Forget it. It's like, scratching at a safe with a plastic spoon. You're never going to get in. And that's, unfortunately, students and young people don't realize that, and they stay.
So what advices do you have for them? My question is
leave.
So you
leave. If the company is not really committed, there's a labor shortage. You don't have to worry about finding another job. Maybe it'll take a little bit longer. Work for companies that actually inspire you and that you want to be associated with. If you just want to be associated with dying rich as quickly as possible, that's fine, but make that decision. Just stop talking about, I really want to do this and I really want to do that. Only one of the students that I had, maybe it was two in the 3-4 years that I taught at the Royal School of Management, actually followed their heart and did their MBA, did their PhD, and always stayed in that sustainability. All the rest, they were cowards. They were afraid of their student loans. I couldn't find any research paper anywhere that said ranked MBA students, how many went personally bankrupt on their student loans because they couldn't pay them back. Very few. And everybody worries about that. And I'm glad that people are showing more interest, but very few of them actually say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to work for you because I don't really see what are your values. Because they only need to hear that a few times. Then you can change the behavior of the company. If you can't get people to work for you, and ultimately investors won't invest in you, then you have no future. You have no future. And it's important to leave a company and tell them why you're leaving. Also, most employees don't do that. They're happy with the attention they got. They're a director and they live in a small town, so the community can see, oh, he's director of a bank. That's a big shot.
So basically encourage young people to focus. I mean,
Anyone.
anyone, but to focus on their values more than anything else.
Yeah.
And
If it's
don't
important to
hesitate
you.
quit if it makes sense to you.
Yeah.
Don't see it as a failure, maybe, but just
Not at all.
see it as you stepping up for your values, I guess.
And you have power then. You have leverage.
Mm-hmm.
You know, particularly if you're being recruited, then you have real leverage. But most students think, oh, I'm powerless. I should be happy that KPMG is offering me a job. Until you work there and say, oh, wow, this is not really what I want to do. I'm just not, it's just an hour writing machine. So if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But most people are looking for some form of purpose. Everyone. And they just don't realize, they're always afraid, oh, if I don't take this, I won't have income. But there's always going to be a demand for talent. And that's why you see all of the big wealth managers keep stealing people from each other, because they don't find the talent, you know, coming out of the universities. And that was a thing that unfortunately very few of the students that I kept telling this to did that. They were, oh, I'm happy that they're offering me a job. You know, I don't want to be unemployed. You'll always find something, and always follow your heart. That's probably the most important thing.
Thank you so much, Robert. That was amazing thoughts, and yeah, I hope that the audience can take as many insights that you provided